You are now listening to the A Dose of Disruption podcast, powered by Experian. Weekly compelling conversations on making money moves and growing your network. The place where you can learn to be you and do you all at the same time. I'm your host, Shelly Bell, and now, let's see what this week's Level Up looks like. All right, so we're back with another Fix My Pitch episode. These are my favorite because we get to hear from founders who are practicing their pitch or going out and pitch in real time, and we get to see exactly what that looks like and give you kind of like a back end understanding of that. So it's been fun doing these. So here today we have Bridget Jones, who I don't even know what you're gonna be pitching today. It's been a minute since we talked. So I heard you say this is a new pitch.
Yes, this is a new pitch. It's a pitch I have not practiced yet.
Dun, 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 dun. Exclusive. All right, so this week, so that means I get to have like a first-hand experience of this first pitch. So that means that when you say it 15 more times, it may or may not sound the same, right? It may or may not look like this. You may find some other discovery as you're building it. Who knows? But I think that's the beautiful part of the practice. So that's why I like this segment, which is pitch practice, because you get to come in. There's no stakes. You pitch and then we just work through it.
Absolutely. And I'm so excited about it.
All right. You feeling all right?
Yeah, you know what? I'm okay. I'm all right.
Okay. You just okay?
Yeah, just okay. So I had a surgery last month, right? And that kind of. Yes. So I had some stuff going on internally. I had 17 tumors. So I kind of had to stop, my personal stuff, my business stuff, and really address my health for a second. And so I'm actually just now getting back into the ecosystem again. It's only been about 2 weeks for me. And so adapting and readapting and some pivots here and there to kind of get ready to come back with both my feet squarely planted to be able to do this, to really be able to do this work a little bit better than how I was doing it before.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. No, I didn't know. Well, I'm so glad that you're doing okay. I'm so glad that you're recovering and healing. So glad that you had time to take that. So you know what? Let's talk about that for a second. Did you push it to the edge where you're like, okay, I just gotta, take this time? Was it more emergent? Like, what was the feeling and the process of like, I gotta pause and take care of myself while you were in the middle of taking care of your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I knew I would need to have the surgery at some point this year. The thought of preparing for that was really uncomfortable. So my process, I tried to kind of push and push and push and push to be at a place where, when I was going to get back, I could pick up a little bit easier. It didn't happen in the way I imagined it to, and that's okay. But it was really scary to think that I would have to take this pause.
Yeah, I can imagine. Did you have your team and everything at a place that you felt comfortable, or did you have to press for that, or like what was that? So like you get the news, you got to do it this year. You kind of press to the edge a little bit, but what was the team process like? Did you like immediately go to your team, be like, hey y'all, I gotta, have this thing done by the end of the year, so everybody get ready? Were you keeping it more private because you were nervous and didn't want to scare them? How does that feel with investors at the table too? Like, what was that process like?
Oh yeah, so it was extremely uncomfortable. So for most of it, I kept it super private. So, only maybe a few folks in our company even knew that I was going to be out for some period of time. And so, what they did is they kind of covered for me for some weeks until I could try to sneak back in. Although I realized that, me being gone for some weeks would be noticeable. So there were a lot of questions about, hey, where's Bridget? What's going on? That type of thing. I'm grateful that I have family support, and a lot of community support was really there during that time period. But coming back to work was, it definitely revealed that I needed to make stronger processes put stronger processes in place for the way I was running business, the way I was, hiring folks. Prior to this process, a lot of things were verbal. I realized I needed to write them down. It took quite a bit of people to try to replace what I was doing by myself. And so as strange as this may sound for me to say, being forced to stop caused me to take this operating this company thing just way more seriously than I would have done if I were not forced to do it.
Yeah. I think, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think the business processes and infrastructure part, sometimes when you're in the rhythm of the startup and you just flowing, you just making everything work, you just like, look, I'm making it work and everybody is seemingly on the surface working okay. And as long as I'm here and I can kind of like point people in the right direction, even when you have key people, it's like, I'll just, redirect everybody every now and then. But thinking about completely having to be out, that's interesting. So you're the CEO of this company, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So I think it's interesting in this idea around like not wanting to let everybody know, and then like keeping the like I'm gonna be out private in a way. Like I so identify with that. I get that so much because it's like, nobody look over here. Everybody just keep doing what you're doing. Okay. We don't need anybody panicking. We don't need them feeling like they can't keep going. We don't need any of that. We don't need them feeling like I might not come back. Like, just let me step over here for a second and I'll be right back. So yeah, no, that part is interesting, even though you're the CEO of the company.
Right. Like, I should be able to, communicate to the whole company what's going on. And then, there's that human element that's going to come through. And you say, well, I want people to know, but I don't really want everyone to know my private information, Right.
So it's a
really interesting kind of thing to balance,
I think it's interesting too, because it reminds me, and I think about this often as well. Do I really know, how much do I really understand about a CEO role and what the CEO should be doing day to day? And how far am I supposed to be in the weeds? And then actually how much do you need to know? Right. Even when my employees are taking off, I'm not asking them to give me a dissertation on their, why and what's going on with their health. So I think that, also setting the expectation like that, like don't expect that from me either. But hey, I'm going to be out. Me being out just means I'm going to be out. And then I think there's some things I've thought about in the past is like, but if I'm going to be out, and I don't tell them why,
right?
Are they going to feel like they can slack? Or would they feel like, they need to know why? Cause that's helpful for respect. Like, what kind of culture am I creating? Like, am I creating a company culture where I want people to feel free about talking about their ailments and things they're dealing with and why they might be out? I don't know. There's so much there. It's just such a rich, experience to share. So I really appreciate that. So when you came back and you noticed that some infrastructure things need to be shaped up, what was kind of your, within the realm of the top 3 things that you were like, you know what, I can't believe this. We're going to have to do X, almost immediately. Did you fire somebody? Did you hire more people? Did you?
Yeah, no. Oh my goodness. I think I'm still working through a lot of that right now. So I definitely had a real coming to Jesus moment for sure. After I realized that, me being away, some things stopped completely. I went back to the drawing board and I sat down with myself and with our team and we had just a very transparent conversation about whether we were honestly that clear about what we actually do, even just to each other. Are we telling the right story? Do people know what we do? Do people know what our mission is, what we care about? Most people know sure, we make mobile apps, but it's so much more than that. Actually, this whole redesigned pitch is the company. It's really the company story that I'm literally working to recraft and work through as I'm, working on what it looks like again. So when I say, yes, you were truly the first person to hear this pitch, still in the middle of this. This will change at least 50 more times before next Friday. But let's do it. Let's figure out what this looks like.
All right, let's jump right into it. I like it. So, Bridget Jones, and you're coming off of, you actually took some time away from work for some different reasons, came back, noticed some things, and were able to look at your company in a new way and develop this pitch. So this pitch is really exciting. For me as well, because had the privilege of being along the journey with you, in certain ways, and always rooting for you. I wish I had known that you were out. I would have sent you some gift, or we have now, I started sending out the BGV bear. So it's here we send out a teddy bear from BGV, and this is your BGV bear. So we'll still have to get you one, but I appreciate you for sharing your story. So let's go.
So the new Chisel is a workforce strategy design studio. So what does that mean? That's plug and play management for seed stage startups. So this workforce design approach is focused primarily on infrastructure, visibility, and funding, the very top 3 areas that startup companies struggle and are challenged with the absolute most. So why specifically Chisel and not another company that offers the same sort of service? We ourselves are the creatives and the engineers. We specialize primarily in project management, software development, and visual storytelling. So phase 1 of this infrastructure, visibility, and funding play has a lot to do with us saying that we recognize that many founders that are in our startup ecosystem may not necessarily be technical, or if they are technical, they may not necessarily be accountants, or if they happen to have really, really strong accountants, they may not necessarily know the ins and outs of all the technology and all the things that it takes in order to make a startup profitable and working. And so that's where we come in. That's what we care about. We come together with over 35 years of experience, of combined experience working specifically in these areas here to really support those startups and to help them become stronger. So we work in five different steps for this. So when we meet with founders, we go through a 2 to 3 week auditing process where we really get underneath the hood to understand the way their technology functions. We also ask them to send us all of their profit and loss statements so we can understand the real deal of what's happening with the way that they're managing their companies. We do beta testers. We pull beta testers from their current employees and from their users, and we custom build solutions and requirements to make this a lot easier. So when these companies get to us, we simply just manage their entire process for them, and through some technology that we were able to build, they can actually watch us as we build out this company with them. So it typically takes us 1 to 3 weeks for the discovery process, another couple of weeks to flush through the market or to actually find out from their real employees how they feel about working for their companies. It takes us a few weeks to design out a strategy for them, and the rest of the year, they can kind of sit back and they can go and raise capital or to really build out their brand equity. We really partner with these companies to make the process of running a company feel more like a CEO in a box. So what are the numbers? How do we actually make money off of this? So we offer 4 packages, A through D. So for seed stage companies that have raised between $100,000 and $500,000, we take 10% of that raise amount, and we're able to work through this entire 5-step process for them. And as you can see from the scale, we take less of a percentage with the higher amount of raise that they offer. And we also work with local boot camp programs to pay for their seats. So right now at Chisel, we offer a software development apprentice program where we source hotshot talents from places like General Assembly and other coding boot camps, and we teach them how to work on teams by working with us as developers. So we are right now about 6 weeks away from our women-owned business, minority-owned business, and disabled veteran-owned business, where we work with different federal government agencies and entities to be able to build out our teams. The more we source and we bring in our own contracts with the federal government, we take these same apprentices and we add them to our applications so that they can actually work with the federal government. And so for those who are not quite ready to work for those contracts, we also place them to work for these seed stage companies. So what does it look like for the apprentices? So for the apprentices, we're able to measure the effectiveness of our programs by looking at training software integration programs. We are able to measure our outcomes as they are navigating through our process and our programs. And the reason why we do this is so that we can make sure that we're accountable to our stakeholders and also to our overall mission. Our overall mission.
Okay. So technically it's supposed to only be a 3-minute pitch, but I have a question. Okay, let's get to this how do we work part, because I want to. Oh no, I'm sorry. You already went through how you work, right?
Yeah.
You meet with the founders. You go through the weeks process. You went through that, right?
Mm-hmm. So I was showing how we work for the seed stage companies and how we work for the apprentices that we train.
So, question for you around like this particular pitch: is this where would you use this pitch?
So this is actually not a pitch to raise capital. It's more so of a pitch to show to better communicate to our stakeholders what we do.
Okay, got it. So while I was listening to it, I was listening for not necessarily to raise capital, but I was listening for like if I were going to buy into this. Like here I am on Black Girl Ventures, and I have, hundreds of women that we focus on and programs and things like that. And so I was looking at it for like, okay, this could be cool for us to for people to get this access to this, and then being able to understand better how to manage their companies. So I think that's so from what I gather, let me know if I'm right. Chisel is a platform, or is Chisel the company? Wait, sorry, let me stop there. Is Chisel the name of the platform, or is Chisel the company, or are they one and the same?
Chisel is the company that happens to have a management platform built into it.
Okay, got it. Cool. So Chisel is the company. And so what Chisel does is, one, you have an apprenticeship program that allows people to get, students or people interested in coding to actually learn to be on a team, a software development team, and get access to new jobs with startups. Two, you have I don't know if it's workforce, but you have a platform that allows them to be able to understand like organizational development around like what it means to manage their companies. And from what I hear, it includes, it sounds like it's focused on like software and accounting. I didn't hear legal or marketing in there, so I wasn't sure if those were a part of it too.
Okay, that's a really good question. So the services that we're offering right now does allow us to manage the entire company for seed stage companies. The apprentice in our programs, they're software developers. These are software developers that we're going to place or hire working for us full time, or they go work for any of the clients that we work with. So when we say we manage the companies for them, what that means is we're managing their entire tech stack for their product, their entire DevOps, their entire financing strategy. And also we can build out their companies for them with the same apprentice that we train internally.
Who is the customer?
The customer is a seed stage startup that have just raised capital.
Okay, and they need to do what?
So seed stage companies, even though they have raised capital, they are accountable to their stakeholders. For example, if their funder is a VC, they're responsible for being able to profit about 10x times the raise amount. Now, in order for them to do that, it takes so much more than just software. It takes really an entire team, an entire C-level team to really kind of sit down and roadmap what it looks like to be able to be accountable to those stakeholders. And so that's where we come in, and we're saying that we know that it's a lot of work to be able to build out software, to be able to raise capital, and then what? How do you take this MVP and turn this into a tech company? And so all those things that go into place, all those nuances is what we cover. And our revenue amount is just based off a percentage of their raise amount.
Okay. So, like I said, I'm trying to figure out who the company is. I mean, who the customer is deeper. So yes, startup that has just raised a round or just, raised new funding. But it sounds like it's also startup with an MVP with the intention to build a tech company, right? Sounds like startup with the MVP, but it sounds like an MVP that is a software related, like MVP. So like a SaaS product, or it doesn't sound like we're talking about like websites. We're talking about people who have raised money and are looking to have a mobile app, SaaS, level product, maybe mobile first web platform. Like we're looking for that company to that tech that they just built and tested out and MVP'd and now know it works, raise money. And now those people, and do you have any idea around like the kind of team members they have? So like, is it tech startup with an MVP who have hired a CTO?
Now that's something that we're still working out. I haven't identified what sort of team that they have in place now. I imagine that team would look very different, right? So depending on whether this is a solo founder, whether they actually came through an accelerator program, whether this is someone that came from corporate America and it has like a C team, they may have different people in place. But you are exactly right. That is the ideal customer.
So the came through corporate America thing, I think is interesting because, I wonder if this is something that people can use to pump out projects internally, or if it's something that like a Google's their startup program and they're doing. If it's something that they would bring in and offer to their folks because they can then like communicate with them the whole way through building. I think I also think like the focus on DevOps is absolutely a particular market. So what are you seeing, or like why did you do this part? Like why are you doing this? Why are you doing this work?
So I'm doing this work because there is a problem I see. There's a problem I see just around the way that we build companies, and I believe that creating this particular solution in this way would speak to the way that we build companies as startup founders and the way that we actually build out teams. So by speaking to seed stage companies that are in the tech space, that are interested in building out teams, I see it as a solution to be able to speak to that leaky tech pipeline, make that pipeline a lot more secure to where it's not constantly falling out. We're talking about placement, where people are going after they're leaving, these coding boot camps, these CS programs that are an alternative to the traditional job market. It's just in a more intentional pipeline.
It feels like a lot to do. I'll be honest with you, because I feel like there's, and then it's a pretty much a long span of time. So like, because I think the whole process is maybe 13 weeks.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
So in this course of so are you building the next version after the MVP with them as well, or
Yes.
is this just Okay, you are building it. If they are, why does your revenue get less and less as they raise more money?
That it's a model that I saw from other competitors that looks to be working right now in corporate America.
What are some of your competitors?
Some of our competitors are Accenture, Deloitte, McKinsey. Those would be our competitors in the space.
But what have they built? So like, yes, as a company, because they're consultants and they work with people on accounting. But I think but what have they built that is a direct competitor or, secondary, like a competitor in the realm of competition for your platform?
They haven't built anything public facing, but they do use internal software systems where they're doing this work. They're just not offering this to their customers. What we're doing is we're not really recreating the wheel here. We're just offering it to a different market in a more transparent way.
Yeah, I love that. I guess I'm thinking about when we think about competitors, that also could be helpful for understanding where to engage, right? So is it already the case, and I'm just asking this because I don't know, is it already the case that there's a person somewhere that you go to this and say, hey, I know you've been rocking with that hula hoop. We got this hula hoop and it's 10 times better. You should rock with us. And they already know exactly what the hula hoop is, how it works, how to use it, who it's for. But all you got to do is get it in front of them. Is that the case, or does it take more? I'm using hula hoop as loosely, of course. But is that the case, or does this take more explanation in order for people to really adapt it? And I'm talking about the people to buy in.
Now, that's a solid question. So this process, Shelly, is literally one that's already being used. It's already being used widely, mostly for just a very different demographic or size of company. I'm literally taking the same process and applying it to seed stage startups. So instead of offering this to a Forever 21, right, we would be offering this to, a Black girl ventures tech company.
Why not offer it to both?
That's a great question. Just one that I hadn't really flushed through yet.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I get that the people have been doing it, but now we're going to get them to adopt this as a user. How many people can you currently, with the size of your team, how many people can you serve at once? And how do you pump out the flow of people?
So right now
because it's a 13-week process.
Now that's a really good question. So right now, just based off of the size of our team, we can do about three a year. So as we continue to get better at this, then we will make those necessary hires or tech improvements to be able to take more on. And so at the end of a year, we can test, see what went well, what didn't, revise, refine, and keep it moving.
Have you already tried this? Have you already tested this?
There are bits and parts of it that are tested. So right now we do have the software engineering apprentice program. And so right now we're testing how much they're able to adapt and learn on a team. They are working with us right now on an existing project. In fact, our first intern was already scouted and hired by another company. So trying to keep talented people right now is something I'm realizing I have to consider. Just to test the requirements, I just need people to finish the program and not be hired out so fast.
Right. What incentivizes them to finish the program?
What would incentivize them to finish the program would be job placement. However, if they're already scouted, then it just means that our numbers will be a little bit off. But the incentive is we're guaranteeing jobs for every single person in our program.
Yeah, but that sounds like a different business, to be honest, or a different business segment. So it sounds like if Chisel Tech Labs overall, it sounds like the hiring, staffing, apprenticeship thing feels like a whole nother section from the startup founder who then gets now yes, they kind of feed into each other, but it feel like two different worlds of operations when it comes to like what it means to intake an apprentice, keep up with them, manage them, and then have them operating on projects, and then finishing those projects, and then moving into a job either with the company they're working with, or if that company can actually hire them. Yeah, I think it feels like two different sides of the business. Have you thought about that?
Yes, it definitely is. Now you hit it right on the nail. They're absolutely two totally different focuses.
Okay. And do you want to get good at one thing first?
Mm.
And I say that
So
because, Amazon was a bookstore, online bookstore. He tested that out and said, "Oh, you know what? Ashley can be a logistics company." And I was like, "Oh, and you know what? Because logistics and storage, it doesn't just have to be, storage or logistics of physical goods. It can actually be this, and I'm not saying this is the exact journey, but like it can actually be AWS, right? Because people need storage in different ways, cloud based. Then boom, now you have these different pieces, and this was not overnight, right? Like this was a course of years. Google says, "Hey, we're going to be a search company. We're gonna start out offering this software as a service. We're gonna create the crawler of crawlers that can find any information you're looking for, and they are and become synonymous with what it means to take an action, right? And then, oh yeah, then we're gonna have cloud storage. Oh yeah, then we're gonna have accelerators and incubators. Oh yeah, then we're gonna have Google which is the Google for startups. Like, oh, now we're gonna go and do these things, these things, these things. We're gonna have email because that's related to cloud storage. We're gonna have Google Play because you're gonna be apps on your phone operating, easily connect to your email. All of it still centered around kind of like what they aim to do. So I wonder for Chisel if there's a place that's like workforce development management. So I don't know if workforce development is the right word, but development management software that where maybe I'm just throwing this out there. Maybe the first thing is the workforce piece. So you get really good at finding the talent, getting them into the pipeline, getting them on the team to work with on projects for seed stage startups. And then from there, they're like able to get hired by those seed stage startups, and you become the go-to mechanism for not only am I going to help you get placed, but I'm going to also help you understand what it means to be on a team. Therefore, you'll get placed easier, quicker, better. In that realm, you could put some percentages around underrepresented groups because trying to get underrepresented groups hired earlier at startups there. And then there's people who are interested in this, like where you can go from an investor realm and be like, okay, well, your startup can report out on how it's doing with hiring from the beginning, and it's creating more equitable hiring through my platform. We also can help them figure out their ability to hire their engineers based off of their accounting. So it's like, hey, you raised some money, you got some money, and like, here's what it would look like if you hire 5 software engineers to take your platform to the next level. Maybe you want to hire 2. Cool. We'll place those 2 with you. No problem. Right. So I think that's one whole business thing. I think on the other side is the, like, how do we actually do the, like, how you execute on the actual development project with them through this software, which also, again, shooting updates to your investors, maybe, sourcing or looking at different software engineers. There's a couple of things that you might run into. And that is, like, if an engineer leaves you early and goes to work for the company that they have been working with, then you could charge a fee for that. Like, if you want this person to come work for you sooner than their contract is up as an apprentice, then that means you got to pay X amount of their first year's salary to us because we help recruit. There's also other staffing areas that you can make money in where it's like, well, here's our recruiting service. For example, I'm about to use a recruiting service to recruit some key roles because throwing it out there and letting people apply just ain't going to do it. And if you want to hire women and people of color, people have to now consider that they need to pay for that. So I'm like, okay. So I'm going, it's going to cost me 25% of the first year salary. In order, and they don't charge me until they find the person. So they go through the process, they interview them, all that. I'm not saying you're going to do all that, but the staffing arena is an interesting one, especially because now so many people are being pushed into coding boot camps, but there's still no actual defined job pipeline for them with early stage founders or companies in general for that matter. Right. So I don't know. It's just me throwing out some thoughts, and, take all advice with a grain of salt out to anybody that, where you want to be and what you want to do, for sure. But those are just some initial thoughts. Any reactions to that?
That's some really good advice, right? Like, seriously, I was like, this is why people come to you, right? Because you're out here giving out good advice. No, this is really, really helpful for sure. Like, we're going to be testing a lot this year with the programs, testing out the curriculum, the effectiveness, whether the students like it, whether it's working, and trying to use technology as a way to be able to do that easier. Those are my initial thoughts. It probably would be easier on me if I slow down and kind of work in a certain type of way, for sure. So that would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, slowing down is not always favorable to us as founders, and I completely get it. I do think that it could be interesting to see what happens if you were to choose one of these business segments to really, really double down on and lean all the way into what your software can do for one of them, and then be able to come back with some lessons learned and also some revenue. So, I can see a world where this is a really great moment to go out and get some workforce development contracts from the government to really, really continue building your software and figure out how you place people. You're really good at networking and meeting people and having deeper conversations. So could be interesting to see, like, what if you were to partner with like a Techstars or, even partner with us? Like, what would be the best way to have these companies? Techstars has some larger, dilutive capital engage with them. Or Halcyon, to say, hey, now you're going to go from, this one level of MVP to the next level. What does that look like? And not what does it look like in just a development standpoint, but you mentioned accounting and like, what is it going to look like from a marketing user? How do you get more users? Like, there's so much there. The CEO in a box, or the like business development in a box, is really, really, really inviting from a small business standpoint as well. Just because people just don't know what they need yet. So being able to even have a freemium model where like you can join a platform, but if you want to unlock certain levels, you might need to pay a fee to be able to add your, QuickBooks, or add your Expensify, or add your, it depends on if you're trying to create a one-stop shop or not. And also, just like, I feel like there were some decisions that you may have to make in there where it's like, okay, are you a software development firm and this project management software helps you software develop better? Or are you a SaaS product that helps people manage their companies better? And just pulling that apart to say, which one of those do you want to engage in? I mean, you don't have to answer that for me, but I'm just saying, in general, where do you want to play? And you could do them all, but just one at a time and roll them out.
For sure, for sure. That's some really good advice. I'm writing all of this down, Shelly.
Well, I appreciate you sharing. Any other questions or thoughts that you wanted to share? Anything I didn't get to that you want to share about your company for people who are listening, or any words there?
I think that's it for now. If any other questions come up, then I'm sure I'll email you and the team. Says to be able to get back, but that's it for now. This has actually been really helpful and really helping me flush through how I could set this up and to better communicate this. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing. I'm always here to help and bounce things off of. Ultimately, I'm so excited for your journey and glad to see you like rocking and rolling and like thinking through this, because you are on to something. So that little spark that you have was like, I know I'm on to something. Like, keep that. All right. And there's a lot of platforms out there that are trying to address different things. One is like, the investment side, like put up your investment, communicate with your investors through this platform. Another one is like the small business development and helping them get access to local and national resources. Like, oh, here's that. And here's how you get access to resources. Let's keep working on that. And then there's, well, shoot, I don't know how much more I'm going to raise, but I need to just build a really great company right now. And that could be helpful for VCs to hear when they're funding people. They're like, hey, you're going to be, I'm going to give you this, I'm going to be a part of this next round. But with me being a part of this next round, I also want to recommend that you use this software to communicate with me, manage your company, X, Y, and Z. So I think you could, like, partnerships is what is ringing loud for me too. Like I said, even with the Google, piece of it, because I think when we first started, you were looking at how to help founders communicate with dev shops better. And I, as a founder of a tech product, went through this. And now we finally have gotten to a place months in where we're rocking and rolling. They understand me and I understand them. But, the time that we had to get there was taxing. Yeah. So I loved that focus on it. But I also love where you're going now. And what I meant by the Google piece is like whether or not accelerators and incubators inside of corporations, either who are pumping out new ideas internally, could use this as a part of their process and flow, or working with founders externally and bringing them into internal resources. So I think this is great and you're on to something. So keep chiseling away at it. Where can we find out more about Chisel?
So right now you can find out more about us on our website, chiseltechlab.com. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Chisel Tech Lab.
Awesome. Oh, I didn't think of that. Like, chisel away. Should do something. Like that should be somewhere in there. Anyway. Well, thank you so much, Bridget. I really appreciate you. It's always good to talk to you. And we will be rooting for Chisel Tech Labs. Thanks for joining us, Disruptors, and congratulations. You have taken another step toward being friggin' amazing. Make sure you visit us at adoseofdisruption.com, where you can subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or via RSS feed. Rate and subscribe if you're all the way live. Rate and subscribe if you're all the way live. That's right. Tell a friend, rate and subscribe to keep us all the way live. And come back next week so we can disrupt some more shit.